Hello friends, welcome to the 21st session of Hybris tutorial. In this session, we will learn about the converters and populators in Hybris. We will learn what are converters and what are the populators in Hybris and where we use the converters and populators and at what place we define the converters and populators. We will learn all these concepts in this video. In the end of the video, I will be creating one converter and populator from the very scratch. So this video is going to be very informative for you. So before starting anything, I want to show you how a converter and a populator looks like. Then we will be writing the definition of converters and populators. Guys, I have already done the B2C accelerator setup. If you have not done this setup, I would recommend that you should firstly do the B2C accelerator setup. The link of the video is given in the description box as well as on the top right corner in the card section. So you can follow the steps given in the video and you should firstly do the B2C accelerator setup before starting any chapter in this channel. But for now, I have already done this setup and my server is already up in the debug mode. So I will show you how a converter and a populator looks like. If I go into facade spring.xml, over here you can see this is one converter definition. Over here we have given the definition of a converter and this is the definition of a populator. Don't worry about this. I will be explaining you all these elements in this converter and similarly all the elements in the populator. I will be defining or explaining you all the elements of this populator. See, these converters and populators, how these are called. So basically, we call the converters, like in the current example, we have called the converter from here in this class default cart facade.java. As you can see, at this point, we have called this converter. So guys, this is the basic view of a converter, and as you can see over here we are calling the converter and inside this converter only, because as you can see in facade spring.xml only, in the converter definition we have given the reference of a populator. That is why internally it is calling the populator, and this is the definition of a populator. And as you can see, this is the populator bean class. If I go inside this, so this is how a populator looks like. You can see this is the populator. So this is the sample of a populator, how it looks like. As you can see, there is one method, overridden method, populate method, and this is the core method or a main method of any populator. You will see this populate method written everywhere inside any populator. Guys, this is how a converter and a populator looks like. So firstly, before defining anything, I just want to tell you why we use converters and populators. Okay, so converters and populators are used basically, for example, I made a call to the database for getting the cart details. As you already know, once we get the details or data from the database, we always get the data in the form of model classes. For example, we will get the cart model object from the database, right? Just suppose in the cart model we do have 10 parameters. For example, ID, then cart name, okay, and then cart UUID. Similarly, we do have 10 parameters inside the cart model, right? So from where this cart model object is coming, this is coming when we are making a query to the database for getting the or fetching the cart details, right? So once we get the cart details, at that time we make or create a cart model object, right? So from the DB, we are getting the cart model object. But in the front end, my requirement is I don't want to display all these 10 parameters, all these 10 attributes. In fact, my requirement is that I need to display only three attributes, right? So in this condition or in this scenario, it is visible that we are not required to send all the 10 attributes which are present in the model class to the front end, because in the front end we need only three attributes to display. For example, we just need to display ID, name, and UUID, and all other parameters are not required at front end, right? So Hybris recommendation is that we should not export all the parameters which are present in the model class, which we should export only those parameters or only those attributes which are actually required to display on the front end, right? So for that, what we do, we create one DTO class, right? So DTO is basically data transfer object. Okay, so DTO is data transfer object. So what we do in this DTO class, we do have only those three attributes which are actually required to be displayed at the front end. Okay, so in the DTO, we do have only those attributes which are actually required to display on the front end. It means DTO is very much compatible with the front end. Similarly, a model class is very much compatible with the database, right? So what we do, we just populate this DTO. DTO is also POJO class. DTO is also a POJO class. Okay. So what we do, we basically like I need only ID, name, and UID. So what I do, I basically get the ID, name, and UUID values from the cart model object and populate those three attributes, these three attributes inside this DTO class, inside this DTO class, right? So this thing is basically done inside a populator. Okay, so I hope now you have a blur idea what a populator does, right? For example, if I can show you one example, I will firstly enable the debug points. As you can see now, the debug points have been enabled. So what I will do, I will go over here and then will search for some items. Say I am searching for jackets. You can see we do have a list of jackets, and then I will open one of the jackets, and then what I will do, I will try to add this item into the cart. So for that, what I will do, I will just simply click on add to bag button. So I am clicking on add to bag button, and once I click on add to bag button, there is a backend call which goes to the server, and you can see the call has gone to add to cart controller.java, right? So you can see this is the request mapping, and the call has gone to add to cart controller.java class. Over here, we do have a facade class. Don't worry about this facade or any files. I will be creating a separate video to explain the complete MVC flow in Hybris. But for now, this is just understand that facade is the next layer. From the controller class, we always call a facade class, and I am calling this method add to cart in the facade. Okay, so when I go inside this facade, so this class, the name of this class should be default cart facade, and inside this method, it will be basically coming over here, add to cart API, and this is basically calling this API. So I will go to the next point. Okay, so inside this API, add to cart API, you can see over here I am calling a converter. I am calling converter dot convert method, right? So this is add to cart params. Over here you can see we do have multiple parameters, right? So this is the thing. Over here we are passing add to cart params parameter, and in return we are getting the object of type commerce cart parameter, right? So what this line basically is doing, it is basically calling a commerce cart parameter converter. What this converter is, if I can show you the definition of this commerce cart converter, if I go just copy this and just try to search in the XML, I'm just trying to search in the XML for its definition, how this converter is defined. So this will take some time, and you can see we do have some results, and this is where this converter is defined, right? So what it is done? So this is basically a simple bean definition. You should already be aware how to define a bean in the Spring. If you are not aware, don't worry, I will be creating another video on the Spring in future. But for now, just understand over here, I have defined the bean. This is the alias, and this bean is identified by this alias name only. And this is the bean. Over here, what I have done, this is the bean name. Always a converter is extending out of box class, which is abstract populating converter. Just remember this, every time you will be creating a converter, you have to give this parent as abstract populating converter. Okay, then this is the property class, which is the target class. Over here you always have to give the value of the object which you want to get in return. For example, in our case only, if I can show you, like over here you can see we are calling this method get commerce cart parameter converter dot convert, and we are getting this object or this Pojo class in return, right? So this is the target class, okay, and you can see the same definition is given over here. This commerce cart parameter is the target class, I hope. So this should be like the return object which this converter should return, okay. And then this is the populator. This is how a populator is always defined inside Hybris. So this is how a populator is defined. We give the property as populators, and then we give the list of populators. Don't worry about this concept why we are giving a list of populators. So basically inside a converter we can have n number of populators. I will be explaining you in the later part of this video in which situation we can have a multiple populators. But for now, just understand this is how a converter is defined, and inside a converter we are calling a populator, and this is the populator definition. So basically over here we are giving a reference of a bean, and this is the same populator bean, and you can see inside this we have just injected three properties: cart service, product service, and point of service. I hope you are already aware of Spring injection concept, but if you don't understand that concept, just understand we have just instantiated three parameters: cart service, product service, point of service. We just have initialized three objects. Okay, so this is the commerce cart basic populator. Okay, if I go inside this, so this is the populator. Just always remember, a populator always implement the populator interface. Whenever you will be creating a new populator as well, you just have to implement that class with an interface which is implements populator, and over here you have to give the definition. What is your input? Like my input is add to cart params, and my return object is, or my target object is commerce cart parameters. Like if I can show you over here, we are giving the input as add to cart params, which is of type add to cart params, and in return we are getting object of type commerce cart parameter. It means my source is add to cart params and my target is commerce cart parameter, and my target is commerce cart parameter, right? So target means which object we will be getting in return. And as you can see, the same definition is written over here. Source is add to cart params and target is commerce cart parameter. And this is the by default method. You have to override because you are implementing this interface, populator interface. And over here you can see this is my source and this is my target commerce cart parameter. And inside this, what we are doing, we are just populating the object, this commerce cart parameter, right? Because as you already aware, this commerce cart parameter, this is the same object which is in sync with the front end, and that is why I am populating this commerce cart parameter inside this populator. You can see I am populating this commerce cart parameter object, parameter like for example parameter dot set cart, parameter dot set point of service, and I am extracting these all values from the add to cart params object only. You can see I'm getting all these things from the add to cart params object only, right? So for example, if I just enable the debug point over here, previously I am at this point, you can see I am at this point, right? If I go to the next line, it will be automatically calling this populator, right? Why it is calling this populator, I have already shown you. We have given this mapping, we have given this mapping over here. When this converter will be called, it will be firstly looking all the populators defined inside this. So over here we do have only one populator, that is why this populator will be called automatically. And what is the use of this populator? It will be basically filling this commerce cart parameter object. And if I go to the say next line, you can see it will automatically go inside the populator. You can see now it is inside the populator, and it will be basically filling this commerce cart parameter object, right? So this commerce cart parameter object will be filled, and after I return to this class, I will be getting this object, commerce cart parameter object. So I will just click on the next line, and you can see now we do have object commerce cart parameter, and I will be passing this object to the front end, right? So I will just skip this portion, but my funda or my basic agenda was I wanted to show you how a converter and populator looks like and how it works. Okay, so basically what we do, we just define a converter, and inside the converter definition only, we are calling the populator, right? So I hope now you understand what a converter and populator basically does. So if I can explain you bit more, so whenever there is any flow, for example, add to cart flow, okay, a call goes from the front end whenever you click on add to cart button. So you click on add to cart button. For example, you click over here, right? So you just clicked over here. Okay, a call goes to the backend, which is at cart controller, add to cart controller. Okay, so whenever you click on add to cart button, call goes to add to cart controller. Okay, from the controller, we always call a facade. From the controller, we always call a facade. As you can see, we called a facade, which is default cart facade, which is basically this one, default cart facade. And inside this facade class only we call the converter, right? You can see we have called a converter, and inside the converter we have defined the populator. That is why this populator was calling. So inside the facade only, inside facade only, we write the converters. Okay. So converter mapping is given in. So converter mapping is given in facade spring.xml. Okay, so facade spring.xml, over here we define any converter. Like for example, in our case, we have defined the converter over here. So inside facades spring.xml file only, we define converter. Okay, so basic function of converter is that it creates the target object. Okay, it creates the target object. Target object means it creates this parameter or create this object, which we will be basically returning back to the front end. For example, this is the same object commerce cart parameter. This is the same object which we will be returning back to the front end. So function of this or the task of this converter is that it creates this new object of commerce cart parameter or new uh, object of target. Okay, so it means it will be creating a new object of commerce cart parameter or the target object. So this is the function. Okay, and then inside converter we call the populator. As I showed you, inside the converter only we call the populator. For example, inside this converter only we have written one property which is populators. Whenever you will be writing a new converter, and inside that, whenever if you need to write a populator, you always have to write like this. Firstly, you have to declare property name is equal to populators, and inside the list tag only you can give your one or more populator definition over here. For example, this is one populator. If you give one more populator over here, for example, this populator, I'm just giving a rough object, for example this one. So how it will work, firstly this populator will run and then this populator will run. I will show you how this looks like and what is the purpose of writing multiple populators. But the basic thing is inside a converter we write a populator reference and this populator definition is written over here. So a populator is basically called from a converter. Always remember populators are called from a converter only. Okay, so inside converter we call the populator, and the task of populator is that it fills the target object with the required parameters. And how it fills the target object, it fetch the attribute values from source object, okay, for example, model class, source object, and fill those values in target object. As I showed you, for example, in this case as well, you can see this is the source object, this is the source, and this is the target. We are filling the target object with the source object. You can see we are filling the target object through the values present in the source object. Okay, for example, we are filling the parameter dot set quantity, or we are filling the target attributes dot set quantity with the values of source object add to cart params and attribute as quantity. So this is how a populator works. So this populator basically gives or return backs us the target object. As you can see over here, we have returned back, or we have given back this commerce cart parameter object, and this object we will be passing to the front end to display multiple attributes. Don't worry about when I will be creating a new converter and or a new populator from the scratch, I will show you how we will be using this target object at front end. So I will be explaining you all the concepts in detail. Okay, so basically this is how a flow looks like. So in this flow, basically what we do have one source object and one target object. Okay, so source object, for example, any model class, say cart model, which we receive from database, and has multiple attributes. Okay, target objects are basically, if I can write, model classes. Okay, but it is not necessary that source object will be always model classes. For example, in our case, as you can see in our case only, if I can show you, source object is add to cart params, so it is not a model class, but this is the source class. But one thing for sure, source object will always have more attributes than a target object, because target object is basically created or only filled with those attributes which we are required to show at front end. Okay, so there are two basic objects, source object and target object. Target object are basically the DTO, data transfer objects. Okay, so these DTO objects are sent to front end to display. Okay, so this is how this works. So how it goes, make a call to controller. From the controller we call the facade layer, and inside the facade layer only we write the converters. Always remember, we are preferred to write the populators, or we are preferred to call the converters inside a facade layer only. Okay, so from inside the facade, we call the converters. And how we call the converters? So this is how we call the converters, as I showed you earlier. For example, this is how we call the converter. And if I can show you, we just have given the getter and setter of the converter. For example, this is the getter and setter of converter. We have just written this. Inside this get commerce cart parameter converter, okay, dot convert, this is the by default method. We do have other methods as well, that for example convert or convert all. And inside this convert method we are passing the source object. For example, our source object here is, if I can show you, the source object is our DTO object, which is basically add to cart params. For okay, so always we pass the source object inside this, and in return we get the target object, and we pass this target object to the front end. Okay, so I hope now all the concept should be clear to you. Now you should have a question in your mind why we call this converter. Okay, so instead of calling this converter, why we don't call this populator directly from here? Why we don't call the populator from here? Why we are calling the converter? Okay, because this converter definition is written over here. Over here, we do have this converter definition, and inside this converter only, we have given the definition of populator. Why we are following this approach? Why we don't directly call this populator over here only? Okay, so the answer is firstly, there are two basic logic. Firstly, the Hybris recommendation is that we should never call a populator directly. And second thing is we can leverage the benefit of adding two populators inside one converter. And I will be explaining you what is the benefit of having multiple populators. So this is why we are firstly calling a converter, and inside converter only we call the populators. So there are mainly two reasons. One reason is that this is the Hybris recommendation only, that we should never call a populator from a facade layer, or we should never call a populator directly. We should always call a converter, and inside the converter only the populator definition will be written, and from here only the populator will be called. So this is basically the Hybris recommendation. Second reason is inside one converter we can have a facility of defining multiple populators. Okay, so this is again one of the best benefit of using this flow. So if I can explain you this thing one more time, for example, I have a cart model object, okay, cart model, which I got from the database, and inside here I have four attributes, for example, ID, name, UID, okay, and creation date and modified date, okay, and one more attribute, for example, PK we do have. Okay, so in the cart model, we do have these five attributes. Okay, but my requirement is that in the front end, I need to show only two attributes. So for that, I will have a corresponding cart DTO object, which is data transfer object. So always remember model classes are always in sync with DB, and DTOs are basically in sync with front end. Okay, so DTO will have only two attributes, which is ID and name. Okay, so this is my requirement from the DB. I got these five attributes. Now I need to pass these five attributes, but not all the attributes, all five attributes, only two attributes, ID and name. So how I will be doing on the facade layer, I will be calling a converter. I will be basically calling a converter, and I will be calling the convert method. For example, over here you can see I have called the converter dot convert method, and I am passing this source object. Okay, so this is how I will be writing converter dot convert, and I will be passing source object. For example, you can see over here source object is this. This is my source object. Okay, source object, and target object is the object which I need to fill the values, which I need to pass to the front end. So this is my target object. Okay, so I will be basically calling over here or passing the source object. Okay, and when I will be calling this converter definition will be written inside the facade spring.xml. For example, in our case, this is written over here. You can see the converter definition is written, and inside the converter we call the populator. Okay, so so what I will do inside this populator, inside the populator, I will be basically having one populate method as I showed you inside the populator. Like over here you can see inside the populator, because this populator implements the populator interface. Okay, so that is why it by default overrides this populate API. Over here inside the populator, we do have a populate method, and populate method have two objects or two arguments. One is the source, second one is the target. Okay, for example, in this case, we had the source object as add to cart params and target object as commerce cart parameter, which we will be passing to the front end. So what we were doing, we were extracting the values from the source object, and we were filling basically the target object through the values present in the source object, or the attribute values present in the source object. Okay, so what we basically do, we are basically doing inside here like target dot set attribute 1 with the value of source dot get attribute 1. Okay, so this is how I fill the, for example, I just need to pass two parameters to the front end. That is why I will be writing like this, get attribute 2. Okay, now you can see this target object or DT object has been filled. You can see target is the DT object, so this has been filled and this will be returned to the front end. For example, you can see over here this target object has been filled and this will be now passed to the front end. Okay, so this is the complete flow of a converter and populator. Now there will be some, queries in your mind how we can define a target object. For example, in our case, we do have a commerce card parameter. So you can see this is a simple Pojo class, right? So how this Pojo class is written? Are we writing this Pojo class manually? You can see this is defined inside the platform extension. So of course, we are not writing this Pojo class manually. So the question arises where this definition is given. So this is given with inside a bean.xml file. If I can search here, you can see over here we have given the bean definition and all the attributes present in this bean, or inside this DTO class we have given all the attributes with the property tag. I hope now this is clear to you how we write a Pojo class. So we just have to give this mapping, and once I do ant all, by default this Pojo class or this DTO class gets created inside the extension folder or inside this platform extension. Okay, so I hope it is clear to you. So I can write over here this DTO or target class mapping is given inside facade bean.xml. Okay. Don't worry about this. When I will be creating a new converter and populator, I will be basically then creating a new DTO object as well from the very scratch. And when we give this mapping and when we do ant all, automatically DTO class gets generated. inside platform extension. For example, this is the DTO class which gets generated. Okay, and model class, you already know, I had already told you in our item.xml session, this model class definition is given in the item.xml when we declare a new item type. For example, if I declare a new item type as, say, product, okay, and when we do the ant all, by default product model class gets generated. I have already covered this topic in items.xml video. If you have not watched that video, you can watch the video. The link of the video is given in description as well as in card section at the top right section of this video. Okay, so this is all about converter and populator, but there is one more thing, as I told you over here in this mapping class. This is the mapping. Over here, you can see inside a converter, we do have a list. For example, in our case, I gave the just one populator. We can have multiple populators. Okay, how we can have multiple populator? For example, in our current this current scenario, I had five parameters in my model class. Okay, five parameters inside my model class, or we do have six parameters over here. And out of these six parameters, I only had to pass these two parameters into the front end. Okay, so for that, what I did, I create one populator, and inside that populator, I populated these things. And how I call that populator? I created converter, and through that converter, I had given the mapping of populator. For example, this is the converter, and inside this converter, I gave the mapping of populator. But just keep in mind, one populator can be called from multiple places. For example, in our case, if I can close as well, this as well, okay. For example, in our case, we were calling this converter from here, right? And from this converter, we were calling this populator. Similarly, this populator reference can be given from another converter as well, right? So it means one populator can be defined or one populator can be referenced inside multiple converters. For example, if I for example, this is one converter. Okay, I can give the reference of this populator over here as well. Okay, so it means one populator can be referenced inside multiple converters, like over here inside this converter or inside this converter. Okay, so it means one populator can be referenced inside multiple converter. Now, so every converter will have a separate flow, right? So basically, this converter will be called from another flow, and this converter is called from another flow, right? Now, if I have a requirement that instead of passing these two parameters, I need to pass one more parameter to my front end. For example, I need to pass the UID as well. So new requirement is I need to pass the UID as well. Okay. Now to pass this UID, we have to do the same thing. We have to call a converter.convert method. Over here, we have a populator, right? Now there are two scenarios. Either in the existing populator, I will be writing target.set attribute 3. Okay, set attribute 3, its value will be populated like source dot get attribute 3, right? There is one way, but in this way, as you can see, I have changed in the existing populator. Okay, and as I already shown you, this populator can be called from the multiple converters or from the multiple flows, for example, cart flow or through the login flow or any other flow, right? So it means one populator is getting called from multiple flow, and when I am doing changes inside that populator, it means we will be passing that value to other flow as well, right? So, for example, if I say this target dot set attribute 3, I am just giving one hard-coded value. Uh, this one. For example, I am passing this value Hybris tube. Okay, so one flow needs this value as Hybris tube, but another flow needs its value as empty. Okay, so if I do like this, if I change the existing populator, then it will create a problem. So to overcome this, what I will do, I will be basically creating another populator, populator 2. Okay, and I will be basically giving the definition or will be writing like this. This is like one populator definition. I will be writing the definition of another populator, and then I will be referencing that populator over here. Okay, and inside that populator, what I will be doing, I will be basically setting this third new parameter or the third parameter, which is UID. Okay, so inside that I will be just setting target dot set UID and source dot get UID. So in that scenario, I will not be impacting or I will not be touching my existing populator because this existing populator can be called from multiple places, and then there is a risk that there can be some issues. Okay, so we always prefer to create a new populator if we do have a new requirement. So I hope now you understand why we need multiple populators or why we can have a multiple populator inside one converter. So guys, I hope now you should have a blur idea about the converters and populators. I hope now we are able to write the definition of converter and populator. So if I can write the definition of converter or a populator, I can write in Hybris converter creates instances of beans. Beans means target DTO, okay, and populators instantiate those instances using source object. Okay, so this is how it works, and each converter can contain a list of populators. This is already I have explained you, and converter task is only instantiating the bean object and calling the populator. Okay, this is the only task of a populator. Why we don't call directly the populator, I have already told you, because this is the recommendation of Hybris that don't call populator directly inside a facade layer, and these converters and populators are only called at facade layer only, right? So this is Hybris recommendation. Converters are used to create data transfer objects, as I already explained you, which is GTO objects. Okay, out of model objects, but not in all scenarios. In mostly the source object is a model object only, right? So I can write in most of scenarios. Okay, and populators are used to fill DTOs. As I already shown you, populators are used to fill the DTOs. Okay, so data objects are constructed from models or other service layer objects using converters and populators, and converters create new instances of data objects or DTO objects and call populators to populate these data objects. And just keep this point in mind that parent class of all converter is this abstract populating converter. And similarly, whenever you will be writing a populator, this will be always implementing a populator interface. As you can see in our current scenario as well, this is the populator, and this populator is implementing the populator interface. Okay. And all the conversion logic is written inside this populator only. For example, in some scenarios, we are just extracting the values from the source object and we are just populating or filling that value inside a target, inside the target object. But in some scenarios, we are customizing the values, right? For example, if I can show you, this is the parameter. For example, this is the parameter dot set point of service. Okay, how we have populated this point of service model? We have populated this from like this. Get point of service dot get point of service name. We have called one service API, and we are passing this source object over here. So either we are populating this target object directly by extracting the values from the source object, or we are firstly customizing the value of source object and then populating the target object. So all the conversion logic is written inside a populator only. Okay. So as I already explained why we need converters and populators, because in most of the application we need to create a subset of data from a larger data structure, right? For example, if we might have a customer table in the database that has 100 fields, okay, but we need only 10 fields out of them to show at front end with some logic, of course, to apply to them on the UI. So our model object, which is source, is that larger data structure that has all the data from the database. And let's call the subset of that your data, which we will be showing on the screen. That is basically DTO object, data transfer object, and we call it the target object because we are trying to convert from the source to the target. Okay, so using converters and populators, we are trying to create a target DTO by converting a source model using populators to populate the DTO. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. So if I can show you one diagram, so you can see this is the basic structure of converter and populator. We do have a model object. Okay, so model object can be converted into DTO either by using one populator or by using multiple populator. Where we use the multiple populator, I have already explained you scenario. For example, we have three attributes to convert initially, then we have a new requirement that we need one more attribute. So either we can add that fourth attribute inside the existing populator, or we can create a new populator to add that fourth new attribute. Okay, okay, that is why we do have multiple populators. And this is more elaborative example. For example, we are on the facade layer, and inside the facade layer we call the converter. We use the dot convert. Either we use dot convert or we use dot convert all API of converter. And converter basically triggers the one or more populators depending on which populators are defined inside that converter. And these populator basically creates the DTO objects, and these DTO objects are passed to the front end. So basically we do have a front end which is client, and we do have this database. Okay, from the database we get the model object, and from the client or DTO object is near to the client end. So whenever we convert this model to DTO, we always use the populator converters and populators concept, and this is how it works. So I hope guys now you understand the converters and populators clearly. So fairly now I can say these populators are independent identities, right? These can be used with one converter or with one or more converter, right? For example, this populator can be used at here, or this can be used as you can see inside this converter as well. This can be referenced in this converter as well. So it means populators are independent identities which can be referenced with one or more converter. Okay, and converters are always defined for a particular flow. For example, inside or our flow, in our flow, we define this commerce cart converter for our add to cart functionality flow. So I hope now you understand what this converter and populator means. Now we will be creating converters and populators from the very scratch. For example, if I show you my add to bag page, so I will be basically disabling my all debug points, and then I will show you my add to bag page. So I am just clicking on add to bag button. So when I have clicked on add to bag button and when I click on checkout, I will be basically landing on the cart page. And once I land on the cart page, you can see this item is there in the cart page. So you can see over here, for example, this is the price of item 315.78 pound. Okay, and this is the subtotal, which is 421 pound. The price of this item is only 315, but if you see the total is 421. Why this is the total 421? Because this total includes the tax as well, and tax value is 70.17 pound. Okay, so if my requirement is I don't need to show the or I don't want to show the total which is inclusive of tax. I want to show the total which is not including the tax values. Okay, so this is my requirement, and in this requirement I will be basically creating a new converter and a populator from the scratch. So firstly my requirement is I need to show order total without including tax values. Okay, so this is my requirement. So I will be implementing this. So it means over here my order total will be only 315.78 after I implement this new requirement. Okay, so firstly I will be basically briefing you how I will be implementing this. So for that what I will do, so whenever I come on the cart page, basically what happens, I will be basically calling this cart page controller. Okay, and over here we do have one method which is this prepare data for page. Okay, over here you can see we are setting the multiple attributes or multiple values which we need to display on the front end. So over here I will be passing that new attribute which is basically like this model dot add attribute. Over here I will be passing uh, I mean new attribute, say sub value. Okay, so this value will be basically one value which will be including the order total price without tax. Okay, so don't worry, I will be showing you how I will be calling. Now from here only, what I will do, I will be basically calling the facade layer, which is cart facade. I will be basically calling the facade, and from the inside this facade I will be basically writing one method, and inside that method only I will be basically calling the converter. So for that, what I will be doing, firstly inside the controller I will do changes. Inside the controller I will be calling the facade. Okay, and from the facade uh, we will be basically calling the converter. I will be writing a new converter which will be internally calling the populator. Okay, populator, and the converter source will be cart model. I already have a cart model in my session. Okay, and target will be, I will be basically creating a new DTO. For example, I will give the DTO name as say subtotal without tax. Okay, I will give this DTO, and I will give this from this converter. Source will be convert cart model and target will be subtotal without tax, which this DTO I will be calling from the or I will be creating or I will be newly creating. And from here I will be calling this populator, and of course this newly created populator I will be creating a new populator. Okay, and I will just give the name of this new populator as subtotal, any name, say subtotal without text populator. Okay, this name we will give. Okay, I will give its name as say default custom cart facade. Custom cart facade. Okay, inside this facade only I will be calling this converter. But as you already aware, firstly we create interface which is basically custom cart facade. Okay, and I will be basically implementing, or inside this custom cart facade I will be declaring one method which can be say get order subtotal without text. Okay, so this is the method I will be declaring in this interface, and I will be basically implementing this interface inside this class. Okay, once I implement this interface inside this class, I automatically have to override this API. Okay, inside this API, I will be calling this converter. Okay, and inside the converter, I will be calling this populator. Inside this populator, inside populate method, what I will be doing, I will be basically extracting the values like cart model dot get order total. So of course order total will be including taxes. So I will be basically extracting this value, and then I will extract cart model dot get taxes. Okay, then to get the value which is without taxes, what I will do, I will be subtracting order total with taxes value. So then I will be populating that value in my populator and will return back. Don't worry, I will show you all this, but I just wanted to show you what all changes I will be doing to do or to implement this requirement. So firstly, what we will do, firstly we will be creating a DTO objects. Okay, so this is the DTO object subtotal without text. Okay, we will be firstly creating this DTO object. How we can create this? So we have to declare this mapping of this DTO bean inside facade bean.xml. So guys, never change any file which is present in out of box suite, always do changes in your custom extensions. For example, in our case, we do have training extensions. Okay, training. So always you need to do changes in your custom extensions only. For example, this is my facade bean.xml. Over here, you can see we already have defined multiple beans like gender data, right? So this is one DTO, this is one DTO. Similarly, I will be writing my own DTO, and that DTO name is subtotal without text. So this DTO will look like this. You can see this is the DTO. Bean class is equal to de.hybris training facade product data subtotal without text. Okay, and property name is equal to sub, so it means this is the new attribute which I am going to create. For example, in this gender data, if these are the two attributes, code and name, if I can show you inside this gender data dot java, there should be two attributes, code and name. Okay, in the similar way, I will be adding one attribute which is basically sub, and sub is its type is, for example, this type is string. Similarly, my type is of price data dot java only. Okay, so what I will do, I will be now I have given this mapping. What I will do, I will just do ant all. Once I do the ant all, I can see a new class subtotal without text.java will get created automatically. So what I will do, firstly, I will bring my server down, and after giving this mapping in facade bean.xml, why I'm giving this mapping over here, I am creating the DTO class. So after giving this mapping, I will do ant all. So this ant all will take some time. Let's wait for this ant all to get finished, and after this ant all get finished, we will see a new uh, class or DTO class should have been created. So guys, now you can see my build has been successful, and let's try to firstly refresh the platform folder. And once we refresh the platform folder, then we will see in our platform folder we should have this DTO class. So we will be quickly refreshing our platform folder. So I will go to my platform extension. So it should be present over here. I will just refresh this extension. Okay, this is gonna take some time. And as you can see now, the refresh is 100% and it is almost finished. So what we will do, we will just try to search with this subtotal without text, and we'll see whether there is, you can see now we do have one DTO. Its name is subtotal without text dot java. If I open this, you can see inside here we do have one parameter or one attribute. It is price, private price data sub. Okay, so this attribute is of type price data. So I hope now you understand how to create a DTO. So the funda is very clear. You just have to give a definition like this in facade bean.xml, right? So you just have to declare the property whichever you want to give inside your DTO. So this is how you have to define DTO. So till now what we have done, we have created DTO. Okay, so now what we will do, we will now create a populator. So now the next step will be create populator. Okay, so how we will be creating a populator, that I will be telling you. So for that, I will be basically creating a new populator and its name should be, as I already told, its name should be subtotal without text populator. Okay, so for that, what I will do, I will be basically searching for a populator. You can see we do have multiple populators, but my intention is basically I will be creating the populator in our custom extensions only, which we created. You can see this is the populator we do have, training facade only, and we need to create the populator. Always remember, as I already told, populators are always created in facades extensions only. So I will basically go over here and you can see this is the I mean April product populator. Over here only I will create my populator. So what I will do, I will be basically copying this populator only and then let me firstly see what is here. Okay, so I will just revert these changes and will then save this. And what I was telling, we will be creating a populator over here only. So I will be just copying this and will be creating a new populator and I will give its name as sub total without tax populator. Okay, so this is the name I am giving to this. And you can see now a new populator has been created. So I will go inside this populator. I will be basically what I will be doing, I will be you can see this populator is already extending. So we will be basically removing all the contents inside this and we will write our content inside this. So firstly, you can see this populator is extend or implementing populator interface. So over here you have to give the source and target. As I already told, our source should be cart model. So our source is cart model and our target should be the new DTO which we created and its name is subtotal without text. Okay, so I will try to add this subtotal without text. Okay, now as you can see, we have implemented the populator interface. That is why we need to override the unimplemented methods. You can see automatically the populate method has been created over here. This is an overridden API. So over here, I will be basically doing that task. The task will be basically what I will be doing. I will be extracting the firstly the order total, which will be including the taxes and then taxes. Then I will be subtracting the order total minus tax, and that is the required value which I need to show at the front end. So what I will be doing, so I will write like this: double total is equal to source. Okay, so this is my source dot get total price. Okay, dot double value. So now I have extracted the total, which is including tax as well. I will be extracting the tax value separately as well. Okay, so it will be something like source dot get total tax dot double value. Okay, now I will be basically getting the subtotal, and subtotal you already aware it should be this total minus total minus total tax, right? So this is my subtotal. This is double. Okay. Now I need to fill this uh, target dot set sub with the price data object. Okay. So, but I do have this value in double. So for that, what I will do, I will be basically or I will be populating this value into a price data object. Okay, so for that, we already have out of box API written this. What I just have to do, I just have to declare one class level attribute which is private price data factory. Okay, I think this is the one. Yes, this is the one. Price data factory. Okay, and what we will do, we will basically create one separate API. Okay, and we will be calling that API from here, and we will be passing this subtotal from here. So we will write this like this, protected, or we can write this as a private method. Private, it will return as object of price data because this is expecting us a value in form of price data only. That is why price data, and I will write this as create price. Okay, and over here, what I will do, I will just typecast this abstract order model. Okay, okay. So I will import this as well. Okay. Here I will write like if my source is okay, if I don't have any values say inside this source, what I will do, I will be just throwing one exception. Okay, in the else portion, we will write our main method and it should be basically so price value will be val. Okay, I will just do the null check as well. Okay, if val is not equal to null, then my price value should be val dot double of value, or if it is null, then this value should be 0.00. Okay, now I will be returning this dot price data factory dot create over here my price data dot by price data type dot by, and then big decimal because it is expecting the value in big decimal, value of price value which we just extracted, and the currency should be the same. So this is what we do have, and I will extract the currency as well over here only. So currency should be, so guys, you also need to follow the similar steps. Okay, it should be source dot get currency. I hope it should be there. Yes, it is there. So you can see now I have prepared this API. Okay, and of course I will generate the getters and setters of this price data factory, and while I will be declaring this populator inside the spring.xml, I will be of course injecting this price data factory attribute. So I will generate the getters and setters. Okay, so you can see now getters and setters have been generated. I will just save this. Now what I will do, I will call this, okay, source, and this value is double. So I will write double dot value of, okay, subtotal. I hope this will work. So guys, this is the populator I have now created. I hope it is clear to you. We just implemented this with populator interface, and once we implemented this, automatically we had to override this populate API. Here I have declared source as cart model and target as subtotal without text DTO. Okay, so till now I have now created DTO, I have created populator. Now what we will do, we will give the mapping of this newly created populator. Okay, so this is the newly created populator. We will be giving the mapping in facade spring.xml only. So you can see this is the facade spring.xml. Over here, we will be giving the mapping of a populator and converter, right? So what we will be basically doing, I will be basically declaring something like this converter. Inside the converter, I will be referencing the name of our newly created populator. So this should be something like this. You can see now I have defined this populator. I have given the class of this populator, which we have newly created, this one. You can see this path is same, and then uh, this is the property which I have injected in this populator. Okay, so this is the populator I have defined. Over here I have defined the converter. Okay, so this is the converter and this is the alias with which this converter will be identified. Alias name is subtotal without text converter. Okay, so this is the converter bean definition. As I already told, we always have to extend this with the parent bean abstract populating converter. Okay, and always we have to use this tag property name is equal to target class to define the target. As you know, this is the target subtotal without text. That is why I have given this. Okay, then inside the property populators, I have given the reference of populators. You can add multiple populators as per your choice, but for now I am just using one populator, right? So this is the populator I have already created and I have given this definition. Always remember, like in populator, we do have a .java class, but you must be wondering there should be one corresponding subtotal without text converter .java as well, but this is not the case. We always define the converter in our XML only, okay? And from the facade, we just call this converter and converter internally call, but there is never a corresponding .java for a particular converter. Okay, so this is one concept which should be clear to you because later on you must be wondering why we don't have any particular converter .java like we do have a populator .java. So now till now I have given the define the populator in facade spring.xml and created and defined converter as well in which give mapping of populator. Okay, so we have done this step. Now what we will do, we will be basically now create a facade. Okay, as I told for the facade, like this is the facade, what we will do, firstly we will create one interface and then this facade we will be implementing this interface. Okay, so we will be doing like this. Firstly I will be saving this. I have saved this. Now what we will do, I will try to search some facade in our training extensions only. So if I can show you, you can see this is the facade which is present in training only. If I go inside, you can see this is also implementing say one simple suggestion facade, and this is simply one interface. You can see this is one interface. I will also create one interface at this location only. So at this location only, I am creating one interface and I will give its name as custom cart facade.java. So what I will do, I will just write its name. You can see it's already there, custom cart facade.java. Okay, so we will give it same name, custom cart facade.java. So I will just firstly copy this and will paste over here and then I will replace my name which is custom cart facade.java. Okay, so you can see now our interface has been created. What I will do, I will just remove all these parameters from here. Okay, and I will just save this. And over here, I will write facade to return API for order total without text. Okay, over here I will give the definition of my method, and the definition should be like this. Okay, subtotal without text, get order subtotal without text. Okay, now what I will do, I will be basically now creating one facade class in which I will be implementing this interface. Okay, so we will basically follow this only. Okay, this only default simple suggestion facade. Over here only I will be creating my facade and I will just copy this and paste it and I will give this with the name as default custom cart facade. Okay, so I'm giving its name as default custom cart facade. Okay, so you can see now I have created this default custom cart facade. What I will do, I will just remove all these things because I don't need this. I just need one converter. That's it. And of course, I need the cart service as well. So I will retain this as well. I will remove all other things and I will implement basically my interface, which is custom cart facade. Okay. And what I will do, I will just remove all these methods. Okay, so I have removed all these methods. I will just add unimplemented method. Okay, and now this converter should be like my source is, you know better, my source is cart model and target is my this one, subtotal without text. So I will just try to search subtotal without text. Okay, I will give its name as subtotal without text converter. Okay, and over here, what I will do, I will just write a logic if my session has a cart, okay, then I will be basically getting the cart from the session. Okay, so I will write logic like this. I will be writing the logic. What I have done, I am checking whether in my session I do have a cart or not. If yes, then I am calling this converter, the converter which I was defining over here. I am just calling this converter dot convert method, and over here you know better, we just pass our source object. Okay, get cart service dot session cart, which is basically a cart model. Okay, so I am passing the source and in return I am getting this target object. Okay, this is what I am doing over here. Now what I will be doing, I will be basically, you can see this converted to populator mapping I have already defined in this facade spring.xml over here. Now it will be basically calling this populator subtotal without text populator. Don't worry, I will be showing you this as well when I will be enabling this functionality in debug mode. Okay, but for now, this is the logic I have written. Now I have created facade as well. So create facade, create facade interface and corresponding Java. Now what I will do, I will do the mapping of this facade. Mapping of facade in facade spring.xml. Okay, we will give its mapping. So we will go back to facade spring.xml, and as you can see, this is our facade spring.xml. Over here, we will give the mapping like we do have a mapping of other facade. In the same way, we do have a mapping of our facade as well, which is custom cart facade. You can see this is how I have given the mapping. You can see over here I have just given the bean ID is this and class is this, and these are the two properties which I have injected. Over here you can see I have given the or given the reference of this sub total without text converter, and this is the I mean bean subtotal without text converter. So always when you have to call a converter from the facade, when you have to call a converter, from the facade, you firstly have to inject the bean of converter. Like over here, I have injected the bean of this converter inside my declaration of or the bean definition of facade. Okay. So this is how you define the facade. Now what you will do, you will be basically calling this facade API through your controller. And our controller is cart page controller. So what I will be doing, I will be basically firstly adding this default custom cart facade as a resource. Okay, so as you can see, I have added this default custom cart facade as my resource. You can see I have already added this. Now what I will be doing, I will be, as I already told, in this API, prepare data for page. Now over here, what I will do, I will write the logic to fetch the or to call that API which we have written in facade. So what we will do, I will be basically calling like this facade dot get order subtotal without text. If you don't see this API, then you just have to do and all. Then this API will start visible to you as well. Okay, so I will write like this final subtotal without text is equal to. This should be of type subtotal without text. So I will write like this. Okay, so I hope it is clear to you. Okay, so now I will be just populating this subtotal without text inside the model like this model dot add attribute. Okay, and this should be I'm giving it as sub value and which attribute I want to populate or I want to show at front end. It should be subtotal, or I can just copy from here dot get sub, right? Because we will be passing that attribute to front end and its type is price data. Okay, so this is what we have to do. Now we are left with one more change. We need to show this updated sub value at front end as well. So for that we do have a one cart.totals.tag file. Over here, what I will do, like over here currently I'm showing cart data.subtotal. So instead of this, what I will do, I will be start using this value. This value I will copy it and I will just use this over here like this. Okay, and I think then it should work. Okay, I will firstly do ent all again and then will bring my server up. So I'm doing ent all, it will take some time. Guys, meanwhile the entall command is running, I just want to explain one more concept. Here we define one populator, right? You can see we define the facade layer and then we define the populator as well. You can see the newly created populator is this subtotal without text populator, right? You can see over here we gave the target source and target, like source is cart model and target is the one which we are basically passing to the front end as I have shown you earlier. But there is one more concept of reverse population as well, or reverse populator. So what are the reverse populators? So as you can see in this flow, what we do have cart model object, right? And we are passing the value to the front end. That is why cart model is source and the subtotal without text or DTO class is the target, right? But in case we are getting a value from the front end, like we get the value login from the login form, right? Or from the registration form. From the registration form, we get multiple values and we have to save those values into the database, right? So in that case, this DTO will already have values which we will be getting from the registration form, and then we have to fill this I mean model class with the values present in DTO. So that is in that scenario we use the reverse populator scenario. We are doing nothing instead of source, like over here in the source we are using cart models. So in that scenario we will be using this DTO as a source and model as a target. So this is the difference we will be doing when we use the reverse populator concept. I have explained you where we use the reverse populator when there is some value which is coming from the front end, like the registration form. We need to save those values. So again, you already know the model classes are always in sync with DB, and DTOs are in sync with the front end. So from the front end, we do have DTOs. Inside the DTOs, we will be having values. Now we have to convert this DTO values into the model. So for that, again, we will be using converter and populator. But here, source will be DTO and target will be this model. Okay, so this is the only change, and similarly, other things will work as it is. So this is the concept of reverse populator. So I hope now the reverse populator concept is clear to you, and you understand where we use this reverse populator concept. So guys, as you can see now, end all command has been finished successfully. So what I will do, I will bring my server up in the debug mode. So if you don't know how to bring your server up in the debug mode, what all configuration you need to do, you can see the video. The link of video is given in description box as well as on top right corner in card section. But for now, I'm bringing my server up in debug mode and this will take some time. So guys, as you can see now my server is up in the debug mode. So I will quickly try to open the storefront. So I'm going to open the storefront. I'm going to open this link and then I will quickly try to add some item into the cart, and then we will see that code will come into our flow and then we will be showing the item without the text. Okay, so you can see I will just disable the debug point for now. So you can see storefront is getting opened. Okay, I am adding some items into the cart, so I will just choose the say jacket category, or I can choose any other category as well, like t-shirt category. So you can see the t-shirt category has been loaded. What I will do, I will add some product into the cart. So I am going to add this product into the cart. So I am going to add this product into the cart. And as you can see now the item has been added into the cart. Now what we will do, I will just enable the debug point over here and then I will click on the checkout button, because then once I click on the checkout button I will land on the cart page. So I am just enabling the debug point, like I have enabled the debug point, and once I have enabled the debug point, my flow should come into the cart page controller once I click over this button. So I'm clicking on the checkout button. Let's see if debug points have been enabled or not. You can see debug points have been enabled, so I will just click on the checkout button, and as you can see, once I click on the checkout button, the flow is coming into our API only, because we did the changes in this API only. Prepare data for page. Over here, we did these changes in these two lines. So the flow should come over here. I will just click over the resume button. Okay, so you can see now the flow has come over here. And now from here we should be calling our newly created facade. Okay, so this was our newly created facade, so it should come inside this. I have already applied some debug points into this facade. So you can see now it has come into our newly created facade. Okay, so over here it is checking whether in our cart session or whether in our session we do have some cart or not. Normally there is a concept in memory cart, Hybris in memory cart. Whenever we add some item into the cart, it comes into the Hybris session. Okay, so this is the standard API get cart service dot has session cart. I will be creating a separate video, but for now, just understand when I add some item into the cart, we save that item into the Hybris in memory, and this is how we retrieve the cart. Okay, so here I'm checking okay whether my session has cart or not. If it has, then I come inside this and then I am calling my newly created converter. Okay, and inside that I am giving the cart model object. You can see get session cart is of type of cart model. Okay, so as I already told, we call the converter, and inside the converter we give the source object, right? So now this converter definition is given inside the spring.xml. So let's see where our spring.xml is. So it should be this one. Okay, over here you can see we have given the definition. This is the definition we had given. So once this converter will be called, it will be automatically calling this populator, and this populator being definition is written over here, right? So it means once this converter will be called, it will be calling basically inside it will be basically calling a populator inside. So the populator is, you can see this is the populator which we had newly created. It will come inside this populator automatically. So let's resume this, and you can see now it has called the populator. So this is our newly created populator and it is coming inside. And as you can see, we are passing the source. Okay, source as cart model and target object is currently null. And over here, we will be filling the target object by extracting the attribute values from the cart object. And you can see, firstly, I am extracting source dot get total price dot double value. So you can see this is the order total. Order total is, you can see, 64.76. Okay, this is including tax as well. And how much tax it is including? So this is the tax. So you can see 64.76 is including 10.79 tax. And over here, I'm just subtracting the total with the tax. And after subtracting the tax, you can see the value is it is 53.97. Okay, so this total I am going to set inside our target. Target is our DTO, subtotal without tax. Okay, so here I am creating this object, this dot create price. This API is defined over here. Here what I am doing nothing. I am just populating this price data object using this method, price data factory dot create. I am giving the price value, this price value, okay, and currency. And once I set this, I will come back to my facade. You can see I have come back, and you can see now the DTO object has been populated. Okay, this DTO object we will be giving to the controller. So you can see now we have come into the controller and we have this object DTO object populated. We will be now giving this or feeding this DTO object to the front end, and you will see that we will be passing the order total value as 53.79. Why 53.79? Because over here I mean parsing this sub value only which we have given in the model object. So once I do this, we will see that we will go into the cart page. So guys, as you can see now the cart page has been loaded and over here you can see the item total is 64.76 but the subtotal value is 53.9, right? So it means now we are displaying this subtotal as the total which is not including the text value. So guys, this is how we can define a converter and populator. I hope you understand how we can use a converter and populator, where we can use the converter and populator, and how to create a converter and a populator or a DTO class from the scratch. I hope you understand all the concepts. If still you have any queries, you can ask from me in the comment section. I will definitely reply. For your better understanding, I will reiterate the concepts one more time in very short. So basically, we do have firstly a source object or a target object. Okay, source object and target object. In case, firstly, we will discuss about the general populators, then we will discuss about reverse populators. Okay, so in general object of general populators, when we will be fetching some value from backend. It can be from DB or it can be from some logic like in our recent demo. We fetch the card model from the in-memory Hybris session, right? So when we will be fetching some value from the backend, so there will be some source object in those scenarios. Source object can be model object, okay, like in our case we had the cart model, and the target object will be a DTO. Like in our case we had a DTO and DTO was this one, subtotal without text. Okay, so basically what we do, we firstly define the converter. We call the converter generally in the facade layer, but guys, this is not a hard fast rule that always the converter will be called from the facade layer only. I have even seen the cases where we are calling the converter even in the controller class as well, and even in the controller class we are directly calling the populators. But the standard practice is we should not call the populator directly, and we should call the converter. Inside the converter we should call a populator, but this converter should be called from the facade layer only. This is the standard Hybris recommendation. Still, in the bad code practice, we call the converters or we call directly the populators even in the controller class. So this is just a recommendation that controllers should not be calling any converter or a populator. Only the converter should be called from the facade layer, and inside the converter definition only we should be calling the populator. We should never call the populator directly. Okay, so inside the facade layer we call converter. Okay, so converter is nothing. So it is basically a bean definition which is given in the facade spring.xml. Over here, you can see we had given the bean definition of a converter. Okay, so if you are extending a bean with abstract populating converter, it automatically becomes a converter. But we don't have a class like sub total without text converter dot java. We don't have like this. So it is the bean definition over here. Once you extend this with this class, this is out of box class. Okay, so it becomes a converter, and inside this converter definition only we define the populator. Okay, so we call the converter, and inside converter definition in facade spring.xml file, we map the corresponding populator or populators, because we can map one or more populator inside one converter. Okay, and I have already explained you in which scenarios we can have multiple populators. For example, like in our current scenario, I had this requirement because I was just in this subtotal without tax. Okay, I was just adding only one parameter, this parameter, sub parameter. Okay, now tomorrow I have a requirement that I need to pass one more parameter to the front end. How I will be doing? I will be basically adding one more parameter in subtotal without text. I will be adding one more parameter inside this DTO class. How I will be doing? I will be adding that entry in beans.xml. Over here, I will be adding one more property, and then what I will do, I will be creating a separate populator for that, because inside this populator we are calling only, or we are setting only one parameter, target dot set sub. If I have to set one more attribute, target dot set attribute 1, I should not do in this current populator, because it can be in real-time production scenarios. This populator will be called at multiple places from different converters. So it is generally recommended that to add one or more extra attributes, we should be creating a separate populator for that, and then we should be calling that separate populator like this. We should give like reference bean is equal to populator 2. Okay, so we should do like this. So this is how a mapping goes. So once this populator gets created over here, you can see this populator always implement the populator interface. And once you implement this, by default, we do have a populate. Here we mention the source and we mention the target. Okay, we are just picking the values from the source and we are just feeding those values to the target, and this target, which is basically DTO, we are feeding to the front end. But in the reverse populator, the case is opposite. In that case, we will be basically picking the values from the front end, okay, and then we will be passing or saving that values to the back end. For example, if I want to save my cart object, okay, in that case, we use the reverse populator. In that case, we are not doing anything special or separate. We will be just, in that case, we will be basically picking the value. Here, the source will become my this DTO and target will become my cart model. And then I will be again doing the same thing. So I hope now the concept of converters, populators, and DTO is clear to you. If you still have any doubts, you can ask from me in the comment section. And guys, if you like this video, you can always share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching. Bye.